Hi guys, I've got a page in my Traveler's Notebook for you today and I'm using the new Love You stamp set from Kellie stamps. Now, if you have a look there, you can see that this stamp set is less about lovey-dovey love and quite about food love, which I am all for. I have got these two photos here from a date night that we had when we went to Wellington a couple of weeks ago to a pizza place that I tell you what, I got suckered in. The branding on that place was on point, and I figured great branding has to be great pizza, right? Yeah. I was a little bit wrong on that one. It was a bit of a fail, hence this page. A pizza page would be nothing unusual around here, but a pizza fail page, it doesn't happen that often. So I've just picked out a whole bunch of papers out of my scrap bin. I had some yellows and some wood grains. The photos I've got are all fairly neutral, so I picked a neutral colored paper and I ended up going with this wood grain. I think that it works really nicely with the kind of pizza aspect of it, so I'm going to do some repeat stamping with this stamp set. Now, normally I'm all about trying to sort of fit these stamps together as close as possible on a block. This time I'm trying to spread them out a little bit more. I couldn't make them work as a tight group, so instead I'm going the opposite way and I'm spreading them out to make sure that there's sort of gaps equally among the pattern. You'll see what I mean in just a minute. I had pulled out 4 stamps originally, and when I couldn't get them to work, I added that little pizza slice stamp which filled in the gap really nicely. And when I stamp the stamp here, you can see there's little gaps all over the place. So when I do the repeat stamp, it doesn't look odd because there are sort of equal amounts of gaps everywhere, and that's what I was after when I was working out where those placements are going to go. And I tell you what, make sure that you do this. Just grab a scrap piece of paper and it really does help to stamp it out and see how it's going to look before you start stamping anywhere else. Now I've only got this little 4x6 piece of paper, which is fine. I'm going to make it work. What I'm going to do before I start stamping is actually cut it into the size strips that I'm going to need it to be. So I've just cut it in half horizontally so that I get this strip of paper. And before I start stamping, I'm just going to use a bit of washi tape on the back to stick those together so I've got one continuous long strip. I'm not going to end up using the entirety of this strip, but I want the join in the gap in my book where I would normally have split a whole piece of paper. I want to make sure that that's going to have the same pattern on it. So I'm going to stamp from the middle out, even though those are 2 separate bits of paper. Now when I was doing my test stamping, they weren't stamping that great, so I did use my sand eraser just to give them a light wipe over, and you really can see the difference that makes. It will make your stamps just so much more solid and crisp. It's a neat little trick, and when I remember to do it, I'm always pleased with the results. So I'm going to start stamping now, and you've already seen I've been stamping with brown ink. Again, I'm just going to keep everything sort of tone on tone and really neutral. The brown is going to lighten up slightly onto the wood grain to just create that really subtle pattern. Now this is a fairly large block of stamps, so I'm only going to end up stamping it like 6 times to fill up this entire sheet. And when I've done finish this first row here, I'm gonna start my stamping on the top just slightly off-centered, so I want those gaps in this repeat pattern to be offset so they're not all on top of each other. And so even though you're only seeing half stamps top and bottom, you do get the overall effect of what the stamps say because you can see both halves of them. I think this is a nicer effect. It makes it look more like a pattern paper than it would if I had just stamped it just a row along the middle of the pattern paper there. That's how quick that is. This last stamp finishes off my pattern. and then I can go ahead and clean up these stamps a little bit. I'm not going too crazy. I'm just going to stamp off the excess ink on my scrap paper, and then I can pull this pattern paper apart. That's why I used the washi tape, so it was easy to pull apart. And then I have the 2 halves of my pattern to go on the 2 halves of my book. So I just need to trim them down, and I'm making sure to trim from the left and the right to leave that middle intact, so that when they're all glued together, the stamps in the middle still read correctly as a pattern. Since I'm trimming and gluing, I might as well trim down my photos too. I just printed those off my phone. I used, what is the name of the app? It's the Pic Frame app on my iPhone, just to put those 2 photos together on one 4x6, and then printed them out so I can trim them down. So I'm going to glue in both halves of my pattern, and I am trying to glue the second piece as close to the sort of gutter of my book as possible. This page is at the back of my notebook, so it's a little bit lumpy on the left hand side there, but I just want it as close as I can so that it is still split and my page will bend, but that the pattern still reads correctly. I did want to add a little bit of journaling to this page, and I decided the best course of action might be just to type it out, and I've trimmed that into little strips, and I'm just going to stick these down the bottom here. So I wanted to trim all these wee pieces so that they're the same width as my photo, and then I end up with this sort of column of text and photos on the right hand side of my page, like so. And now I just have to make sure I've cut that straight, which I hadn't, and then glue everything into my book. And then I can worry about a title on the left hand side. So I went through my stash and I did find a sheet, an unused sheet with black alphas, which might be unheard of. And I'm going to spell out pizza fail. None of the alphas that I could find could I find a hashtag. I was gonna write hashtag, but instead I'm just gonna write pizza fail, and it starts off, I thought I was gonna have to stack the words, but you can see how little space fail takes up, so I'm pretty sure I can fit it all on one line, which means I am gonna have to peel off all of these little alphas and start again with the word pizza. And I'm not using any sort of guide or anything, I'm just putting the alphas a tiny bit above the strip of paper that I've got at the bottom, so that's like a built-in alpha guide, which is perfect for me. And see, I get to this point and I'm thinking, oh, I've put down pizza, and now I'm not quite so confident I'm going to fit it in. So I start from the other side just to make sure that that's all going to fit nicely. I do have to shuffle a tiny bit, get that L from fail as close to the right hand side as I can, but I do fit that all on one line. I wasn't really sure where to go from here. It looked a little bit plainer, but I hadn't really planned on anything else. So I figured I would use this little pizza slice and maybe use it like an embellishment, but I just wanted to test out whether you could stack the slices together to make like half a pizza, and you kind of can. So I'm going to stamp that just directly onto the page above my title, and I'm just using the exact same brown ink. Again, I don't want anything to stand out too much, I just want to keep the page really neutral. So I've stamped my little half a pizza, and then I am going to use these ones that I stamped onto the scrap paper. I'm just going to trim out the individual slices, a couple of little individual slices, and use them like embellishments. So I really love how this turned out. It just adds that little bit of whimsy and fun to what is otherwise quite a somber and serious pizza page. The other plus side of having them cut out is I can move them around and see where they look good. So I'm just creating again my visual triangle. So I've got my main pizza on the left hand page, and then these 2 little slices that I can just add overlapping my photos on the right, and then call this page done. This is a great stamp set if you're anything like me and enjoy a little bit of pizza, so don't forget to use my code. All the details are down below, but you can get yourself 10% off at the Kellie Stamp Store right now. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, there's a couple more videos on screen, or why not check out my Patreon page, there are even more videos over there. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Bye!